summer of 1518, in a small city in France, a woman stepped into the street and started dancing. She didn't stop. Not after an hour. Not after a day. Not even after her feet began to bleed. Within a month, over 400 people had joined her, dancing uncontrollably, day and night, until dozens of them dropped dead from exhaustion, heart attacks and strokes. No music, no celebration, no explanation. To this day, historians and scientists still can't agree on what really happened. Was it mass hysteria, poisoned bread, or something we still don't understand? This is the story of the dancing plague of 1518. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why it's still one of history's creepiest unsolved mysteries. Welcome back to the Curious Corner, where we dig into the strangest, most fascinating stories history has to offer. If you're new here, this is the perfect video to hit subscribe on, because trust me, this one gets weirder the deeper we go. Let's rewind to the summer of 1518, in the city of Strasbourg. Strasbourg, in modern-day France, was a city already under pressure. The harvests had failed. Disease was spreading. Poverty was everywhere, and people were desperate. Then, in July, a woman known as Frau Trophäa walked outside her home and began to dance in the street. There was no music playing, no festival happening. She just danced. At first, people probably thought she was celebrating something, or maybe just eccentric. But hours passed and she kept going. Then it turned into a full day. Then several days. By the end of the week, Frau Trophäa had danced for nearly 6 days straight, collapsing from exhaustion, only to get back up and continue. And then, something even stranger happened. Other people started joining her. Within a week, about 34 people had joined the dancing. Within a month, historical records suggest the number had grown to somewhere between 50 and 400 people, all dancing uncontrollably through the streets of Strasbourg. These weren't people dancing for fun. Witnesses described them as looking exhausted, terrified, and in pain, yet unable to stop. Some danced until their feet were swollen and bleeding. Others reportedly collapsed and died from heart attacks, strokes, or sheer exhaustion. City authorities were terrified, and their response makes this story even stranger. Local physicians decided the dancers weren't cursed or possessed. They believed the people were suffering from hot blood, a medical condition of the time. And their solution? More dancing. The city actually built a wooden stage, hired musicians, and even brought in professional dancers, believing that if the afflicted danced it out of their systems, they would recover. It didn't work. It made things worse. More people kept joining, drawn, some historians believe, by the sight of the dancers themselves. Eventually, in September, the plague began to fade. Authorities changed their approach entirely, banning public dancing and music, and instead taking the afflicted to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus, a saint associated in folklore with dance and nervous disorders. Many of the dancers were taken to the mountains for prayer and isolation. Slowly, the dancing stopped. But here's the unsettling part. This wasn't an isolated event. Smaller dancing plagues were recorded throughout medieval Europe for centuries before and after 1518, but none as large or as deadly as what happened in Strasbourg. So the real question is, what actually caused it? Historians and scientists have spent centuries trying to explain this. Let's go through the leading theories. The first theory is ergot poisoning. Ergot is a toxic mold that grows on damp rye, a grain commonly used to make bread in medieval Europe. Ergot poisoning can cause hallucinations, muscle spasms, and convulsions, and some researchers believe this might explain the uncontrollable movements. The problem? Ergot poisoning typically restricts blood flow and would make it nearly impossible to sustain the kind of extended, coordinated dancing that was witnessed for days. It also usually comes with severe convulsions rather than dancing you can walk and move around in. The second theory, and the one most historians favor today, is mass psychogenic illness, also known as mass hysteria. This is a documented psychological phenomenon where extreme stress in a group setting manifests as physical symptoms that spread from person to person. And the context fits disturbingly well. The people of Strasbourg were dealing with famine, disease outbreaks like smallpox and syphilis, and crushing poverty. Historian John Waller, who extensively researched this event, argues that the extreme psychological distress of the population, combined with a regional belief that St. Vitus could curse people with uncontrollable dancing, created the perfect conditions for a stress-induced involuntary movement disorder that spread socially. In simpler terms, the people were already primed psychologically and culturally to believe this curse was real, and stress did the rest. The third theory points to religious hysteria. Some historians point out that the cult of St. Vitus specifically warned that he could inflict a dancing curse on sinners. In a deeply religious society already convinced they were being punished by God through famine and disease, the belief itself may have triggered real, involuntary physical reactions in people under extreme psychological strain. Here's what makes this story so unsettling, even 500 years later. This wasn't a myth or an exaggeration. It's documented in physicians' notes, city council records, sermon notes, and chronicles from multiple independent sources at the time. Real people danced, real people died, and to this day, no single theory fully explains it. It's a reminder of just how powerful the connection between the mind and the body really is, and how collective fear, stress, and belief can manifest in ways that feel almost impossible to us today. So, what do you think actually happened in Strasbourg? Ergot poisoning, mass hysteria, or something else entirely? Let me know your theory in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's strangest mysteries, make sure to subscribe to The Curious Corner. We post new stories like this every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.